sense that everybody feels comfortable that we need this type of funding for our town budget to provide services.
I would say that based upon the analysis that we've done for the public works recreation area, that we feel, as Gary said, that the first selectman, to her evaluation and assessment process with the various department heads, has in fact done the necessary due diligence to come up with a budget that will sustain the services that are required and yet met the criteria of trying to keep the overall budget increase at as low as is possible. And as a consequence, I do support the selectmen's budget as it's been proposed.
I concur with a lot of what Gary has said tonight about the work it takes all year long to understand all this and not to try to shove it into a 1 month and 2 month period of time. And we have been talking a lot tonight about the parts of the budget that on the town side that are increasing or how much they are, but there are sides of the town budget that have decreased. Just in my personal experience in working with the land use department alone, getting rid of contractual services, for instance this year, doing the plan of conservation and development using staff instead of a consultant, which is not what they did in the past. And is saving $25,000 in contractual services, and we lost our $5,000 for a summer intern this year that does very important work every summer for this community. But those are things people don't see in the budget, but they're lost this year.
I agree, and I think I made the point earlier that I want to defer to the work that's been done by those who become far more familiar with the intricate details of delivering on the services than I am. Certainly Pat and the Selectmen and the Board of Ed and also the subcommittees on this council that I think have done a good job vetting some of those things. The challenge that I have, however, is with regard to the equity issue. Later on, you might surprise all of you here, I'm not sure, but I'll be looking for more funds to be restored to the Board of Education.
I think public safety is probably, next to education, the most important part of this budget. And because Mrs. Lojo made sacrifices in other departments in order to maintain the current police force and to ask for a few additional cars so that her overall increase was so low, I would support the overall increase of 0.15%.
I support actually both of these budgets, as that I don't see any reason to reduce either one. I know we're just talking about the town budget. The proposed budget that came over from the Board of Finance, and that's really one of the main reasons I chose to get onto the council was to look at the budgets and work with the council. I knew there was a heavy turnover, and I thought I could be helpful and effective. But this is between a 1/10 and 2/10% increase. I don't think I'm getting to use a lot of my expertise to go in there. So I honestly, I do not have a problem with the town budget.
Well, for 2 years I was chairman of Public Works, and for 2 years I saw our road budget slashed from $500,000 to $500,000 off. And at that time we had a plan. It was called a 20-year plan. And what happens, by the time 20 years goes by, we start resurfacing a road that we did 20 years ago. But at the rate we're going, we need a 40-year plan.
I'm pretty conflicted at this point. I have a strong desire to, in this climate, because of personal experience, knowing some folks that are waiting for the bank to say, okay, that's it, turn the keys in. Some other more horrific kind of consequences of people I know facing this recession, and a desire to obviously keep the budget as low as possible. On the other hand, I recognize that we have excellent quality schools, But I am nervous that although a 700,000, 1% increase is a modest increase. And while inflation is low, it is still a very modest increase, so I am very conflicted. And I'm also concerned that even at the 3%, we may not get a budget passed.
Well, I think enough's been said about the economy. Every town's feeling the same thing, and every town's going through what we're going through right now, and most towns are trying to get below 3% increases. And we always hear about our per pupil expenses in our DIRG. Well, I look at the numbers differently. I took the towns in our DIRG, and I found out what percentage of their grand list is supplied by commercial and industrial. And then I took that percentage out of their school budgets to find out how much of their school budgets is on the residents of the towns. And when you do it that way, Newtown comes out at the top of our DIRG, because our cost per household for the education budget is almost $7,000. Where in Greenwich, who has the highest per pupil, the cost per household is only $4,800. So we have to do something differently than they're doing. We're never going to get that kind of commercial or industrial growth in Newtown. We don't want it. So we have to fund this differently. We can't fund the same way that these other towns are funding. Our taxes would, everyone would have to leave town. No one can afford to live. They're getting a lot of help that we don't get. So one suggestion I would have is that we seriously look at forming an education foundation, and all these people who say they're willing to pay more can have a place to send their checks.
Don't remember the figure, but to be frank with you, see, I think now we've really got to tighten our belts, because, see, the economy isn't good. And of course, the other thing I know too, falling down the line, we had a couple stimulus packages for the special needs children. This came in, of course, I know that was $1 million or more too. And of course, that's something, if the town wants to continue that, that's going to have to pick that bundle up. And of course, I just wonder how we can do that without really impacting, I don't want to say the taxpayer, big time. I know a lot of them go to school, a lot of them are for the budget. Of course, my other mind goes, okay, they passed the $38 million to build a high school, but when you went to build it, it jumped up $6 million. But then the voters didn't vote for it. Now, if everybody was for the school, I ask myself why. But of course, that's where we're going. We're in tight times. You go up. And of course, what I'd like the budget to do is to pass first trip around.
I have some statements. I just wanted to say this is definitely a difficult budget season we've been through, and it's not ending tonight. I'd like to thank everyone involved. I'd like to thank Pat, and I would like to thank Dr. Robinson and the Board of Ed for all the information that they have provided with us. I think it really helped this new council to make well-informed decisions, regardless of whether or not they are ultimately endorsed by this council. We have many people on both sides of the argument which seem to be diametrically opposed requests. On one side, we have residents asking to restore funds to the school budget, and on the other side, we are being asked, pressured to deliver a flat budget that does not impose a greater burden on the residents in these difficult economic times. It is because of these times that conceding to either side of these electorates is impossible. How does a board request the budget been adopted by this council, a nearly 6% tax increase? It is because of, had the board requested budget been adopted by the council, a nearly 6% tax increase would have been necessary. Because of the economy and significant declines in revenue, a flat budget is just as impossible.